Can you guys hear me? It's been so long since I did one of these. Let's see if it works first. Let's see. Oh, it's working. Oh, that's good. That's good news. Yo, Caleb, can you hear me? Didn't anybody hear me? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe so. Audio's good. Video's good. What's up, Caleb? What's up, Brian? We got 6 people in here. That's more people than I thought. What's up, Pablo? How you guys doing? I think it's been like 6 months since I did one of these things. People seem to always like them, and a few people may have requested, special requested that I do another one of these, so I figured I'd hop on here. Sorry it's a little bit short notice. I really should do one of these like every month. What's up, Joshua? What's up, Whisper Jet? What's up, Peter? What's up, guys? What's up, Wiggy Wing? Okay. What's up, 17 of you guys here? We got lots to talk about today. A lot has happened in the paramotor world since the last time I did one of these bad boys. Hand up. What's up, Brian? I heard you're driving. You better heal that knee up, get back out here, and do some trike paramotor flying. Amber, good to see you. You guys are expecting a child soon. Congratulations on that. That's got to be exciting and terrifying at the same time. I can only imagine what it's like to be expecting a child in the next little while. That has to be nerve-wracking. But yeah, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes just to kind of tinkle into the location to join me on the live before I start jabber-yakking about things. So, Caleb, you said you're not doing the Adventure Wingman. You have an SIV overlapping. Is that with Max Marion by chance? Max Acro down there where we did it last year? Wingman, Caleb. Matt Cohen already pushing the Wingman challenge, huh? Judson and I have been talking... Dylan, same spot. Okay. Judson and I have been talking about the Adventure Wingman and whether we should do it again or not. But, dude, we feel so much more prepared for it, but at the same time, just... not really sure if we want to embark on another Adventure Wingman. What's up, Tim? How you doing? I still have your cup. It says Masters of Disasters, Plumbing and Air. Pretty sure that's just you. I'd be confused if I had 2 similar cups. But yeah, Amber, terrifying is a good description, I'm sure. Life will never be the same. Expecting a child. Matt, how we doing? How's everybody? Caleb, if you let me know when you're going to the SIV, I could be talked into going to the SIV with you. I would be down for a little SIV action again. It's been a while, since July, since I went. And I had one signed up in April, but ended up not going to that SIV, sadly. Anyways, I'd love to do another SIV. I think that would be a ton of fun. Is it still working? It feels like it froze for some reason. I don't think it froze, but maybe it froze. Oh no, it didn't freeze. It's just me. Good deal. 24 people. Holy cow. When was the last time I did one of these things? I seem to jabber-yak well for like 2 hours if I do one of these. So some people have requested. It's 5 months ago. Oh my goodness gracious. December 3rd. Yeah, that's a while ago. Well, guys, what do we got? Let's go. Caleb, I would be down. You just got to let me know when you're going to that SIV, and I'll see if I can make that SIV happen for me as well. That YouTube link is a video of some aircraft guy behind Grey 2 Titanium. He sounds convincing. Whoa. What are we talking about here? What are we doing? What link are we discussing in this moment in time? All right. I'm listening. I'm here. I'm all about it. My link? No, my link links to here. You got me a little confungled there. But that's all right. That's all right. That happens, honestly, all the time. Ty, what's up? Welcome back. It was good to see you fly the other day, Ty. I don't know if you guys saw the Facebook post. I probably didn't even talk about it, but we had a handful of guys fly by our last class, which ended on Monday. We had 7 students, and I think 3, 4 guys flew by. It was you, Ty. It was Bryce, it was one other guy, and it was Clint. So yeah, it was 4 guys that all came flying by, which was a lot of fun. At one time, we had like our own little mini fly-in at the last day of our training. We had like 1 new student. We had, 3 comeback students, 3 locals, and then like James Sutherland out of nowhere. And we had 2 paratroopers in the sky. We had like 8 to 10 people all flying around at the same time. That was a good time. I think the students liked it. I quite enjoyed that myself. That was fun. Thank you, Ty, for doing that. I've been only asking you guys to fly by the class for, I don't know, 3 months now. 2 months. I know, since April when we started training here again. Yeah. I got our reinforced toggles. I'm sure you guys saw the Facebook post. I've been playing with them, seeing if I can break them. As you see, we got the reinforcements. I'm sure you know all about the toggles and all the grippy schmippy things, but we got the version 1 and 2s reinforced for everybody, which is kind of cool. Weather sucks. Yeah, Ty, the weather has been kind of sucky. What's the weather for tomorrow? I haven't even looked. I was thinking of going flying tomorrow morning. I have a few students who would like to fly. Do a little looky look here on the old weather station, see what we see. Checking weather live for Cedar Valley Airport. Friday morning looks, Saturday morning looks, Sunday morning looks, Dang weather. Dude, it's been wild weather everywhere for the last, year. Last year was wild weather here. This year is appearing to be wild weather here, too. It just appears that everywhere is going to be weird, wild weather. Let's see. Tomorrow morning, 34334. That's pretty good. 23226. That's pretty good all the way till noon, and it's a little stronger in the evenings. What do we see at Saltaire in the evenings up here? Do a little Friday night sesh at Saltaire. That actually looks good. Tomorrow, weather looks good, Ty. If you're around, Ty, you should come out to the airport. We should do a little flying things. I think we've got a couple of comeback students who want to do some flying tomorrow. We have another class that starts on Saturday with 8 students. It's going to be our biggest class yet. 8 smiling faces ready to fly. I'm kind of excited about that. But Saturday morning looks good too. Sunday morning looks good. Monday morning looks good. All around, I mean, the mornings have been good here in Utah recently, Ty. I'm sure you have been able to sneak in some kind of morning flight. Is that chat frozen again? I'm not sure. Well, guys, yeah. I don't know if you guys saw, but the new Adventure Wingman. Let's see if we can I can make a Friday or Saturday morning work. Please do, Ty. I'd love to have you out there. I'm sure you guys saw that Miro with Scout Paramotors, or Scout Aviation, technically, released his new Adventure Wingman Challenge, which is going to be starting in Lake Tahoe, which is the same place they tried to start last year. And then it's going to go up north, almost to Portland, I think, Oregon, and then around to basically Boise, Idaho, and then back down to Lake Tahoe. So like a full circle. The goal is that it ends in the same spot, which would have been really convenient last year. If Matt Cohen is still in here, he recalls, not last year, it was 2 years ago, dude. What the heck? Where is time going? It feels to me that time is just flying by. No pun intended. It just doesn't ever stop. But yeah, 2 years ago, we ended in a spot that was like 10 hours away from the starting zone, and all of our vehicles were there and stuff, so we had to hitch a ride. And Matt Cohen probably remembers how exciting it was for all of us to hitch a ride in his truck back to the starting zone. Thank you, Matt, for what an exciting ride that turned out to be. I'm sure you remember that. But I am undecided on the Adventure Wingman thing. It sounds kind of fun. What do you guys think? Should we do the Adventure Wingman? Should Judson and I just suck it up and go do the Adventure Wingman Challenge for another 11 days, 1,100 miles? Or not? Yeah, Matt, the ride was way more exciting for me. I had way more fun than you probably did, too. In the back of the... somewhere. I won't describe where we were. You're saying yes, I should? I didn't even finish the second and third part of the challenge, the whole thing. I didn't even make the videos about it because I poorly filmed it. And it was so hard to, yeah, it just didn't end up working out. Matt, you want me to do it again? Of course you do. Curious, how many people have already registered for it, if any? And how, well, actually, let me back up. That's not the question I meant to ask. How many people are you letting register? Like, how many people are you guys taking for this Adventure Wingman? The same 20 people that you took for the last one? Or are you doing like a smaller group? I'm sure you guys have learned. Are you helping on it, Matt? Wear goggles. Yeah, no kidding, Ty. I still can't see to this day. It's still blurry everywhere I look. Not quite, but a little bit blurry everywhere I look. Oh. About the same. Yeah, all right. Well, see, we know so much more about how to do it this year, or yeah, this time than we did last time. Last time, I was so unprepared. I think most everybody was so unprepared. If I don't end up doing it, at least I can offer some help to the people that are doing it and some words of the wise as to what you're getting yourself into when you sign up for the Adventure Wingman. I'm sure if Caleb's still in here, he's got way more knowledge and experience given that he just flew from Mexico to Canada, which I wanted to do. I'm super jealous that you did that. Too bad I wasn't able to swing that. It kind of fell right at the start of one of our classes. More camping at the checkpoints, a little more freedom to choose your route and schedule. Yeah, Caleb, I missed out on the Mexico to Canada thing, but it sounds like you guys had quite the experience. And I wouldn't have been able to keep up on well, I guess Chuck was on a Moster 185, 18 liters of gas. I guess he managed to pull off all the flights on versus your guys' Nirvanas that had a great time, I heard. Sorry, what were you saying, Matt? More camping at the checkpoints, a little more freedom to choose your route and schedule. I mean, there's the hypothetical and there's the realistic, which we definitely learned last time, or on the first Adventure Wingman, that the hypothetical was really cute and cool, and the realistic, real world was very different. You're all going to fly basically the same route, and you're all going to fly the same speed. You're basically all going to do the same thing, and it's going to be very weather dependent and wind dependent. And the realistic is going to be very different from the hypothetical. What's up, Michael? Welcome to the chat. Amber was in here a minute ago. I said, congrats on the kid. You're soon to have one. Let's see, a couple other things that I would love to chat about. I'm sure you guys saw the recent paramotor crashes. I think Tucker's doing a little reviewy thingy of that. Matt, did you fly the Luna 3 by chance? That's my question. Caleb, did you fly the Luna 3? Have either of you guys flown the Luna 3? I know you posted that it was floating around in the Bay Area ecosystem. Did either of you guys end up flying the Luna 3? And Chuck had lots of fuel. Caleb, what do you mean by that? You mean he was launching with just stupid amounts of fuel? Are we talking over the 5-gallon legal limit here, Caleb? Are we breaking the law, Caleb? Because if we're going to do so, at least go all in. Let's see. With a circle, you can take shortcuts if you want. Yeah, Matt, I understand the hypothetical. That's all I get at. There's the hypothetical, and then there's the realistic. And I'd still be in for it. I'd still be down. Let's see. New to paramotoring. Really thinking of trading in my adventure bike and learning to fly instead. The crash is what makes me hesitant. Well, let me tell you a little bit about adventure bike versus paramotoring. I have an adventure bike. I have a paramotor. And in 1,000 miles on my adventure bike, I really messed up my wrist. And in 10 years of paramotoring, I crashed once. So you're far more likely to hurt yourself on the adventure bike than you ever are paramotoring. And realistically, the only way you're going to hurt yourself paramotoring is if you fly in bad weather or you make a poor judgment call low to the ground. There's a lot more to it than just that, but it's a lot harder to hurt yourself in paramotoring than it is on an adventure bike. I was doing 15 miles an hour around a dirt road, turned, and slid out and slammed into the dirt, and I hurt my wrist, and it still hurts, and it's been like 3 weeks. And I can't hardly fly because I can't press. Ow! I can't press on the brake, so I can't flare to land. Ask me how I learned that one. That one was a little exciting, coming into land, and I get to, like, here, and that's all I have because my wrist is hurt. So Mad Max, the Moto Mutt. New to paramotoring, I would recommend trading, not necessarily trading in the adventure bike, but learning to fly on top of the adventure bike unless you absolutely have to trade it in. I will say I think paramotoring is safer than motorcycling. I think it's safer than on-road and off-road motorcycling and adventure motorcycling. I have a Yamaha Tanneray 700. The most dangerous ride of my entire life was riding to Costco to meet Judson a couple of days ago for lunch. And a truck tried to run me off the road. So I would say motorcycling is much more dangerous than paramotoring is. And okay, sorry, tangent, which is usually how things go. Matt, Caleb, did you both flew the Luna 3? Well, at least you did, Matt. What did you think of the Luna 3? I've been asking for a demo. There's all kinds of conversation around the Luna 3 because of Anthony's crash. And I'd love to talk about Anthony's crash if you guys are interested in discussing that. That is new paramotor news, something that has happened since the last time I did a live stream. Paramotoring is safer, less minivans in the sky. Yeah, I mean, in paramotoring, the thing that's going to hurt you is the ground, so you just don't fly yourself into the ground. Motorcycling, and the other thing with paramotoring is you're not just going to get hit by somebody else. Lots to say, but driving now. Come on, Matt. Just pull over on the side of the road. Just stop in the middle of the road, Matt. You're probably driving your truck. People will move. We want to hear about the Luna 3. I want to hear. I want to fly it pretty bad. I've been quite curious about it. And yeah, Ty, I do think that paramotoring is quite a bit safer. I've done it a whole lot more and gotten hurt a whole lot less than I have on motorcycles. But I do really love my motorcycles. And I am thinking about getting some electric dirt bikes, which kind of sounds fun. On autopilot in Tesla. Oh, why you gotta flex on us like that, Matt? Come on, guy. You're even on autopilot. You can't type. Come on, just do a little text-to-type thing. Or talk-to-type thing. You're on autopilot. You probably don't even have to look out the window. It's a Tesla. I want a Tesla. Max, get a paramotor. You won't regret it. Paramotors are a great way to get good chemicals in the brain. That's right. Luna 3 was somewhere between a meh and wonky. Fast, pretty efficient, but very strange feel. Trim plus bar range was bonkers. Interesting. So Caleb, did you go full speed did you go full speed, or did you just trim it out and just push speed bar? Did you do both of them? Because it was doing 48 miles an hour when Anthony blew it up. And it had a little bit more to it, which is interesting given its aspect ratio is more on par with a Sirocco 3. Not on par with something like a Viper XC or Freeride or Snake 3 or Warp 2. So for it to keep up with those wings with that aspect ratio means you're speeding that sucker way the snot up, which you're probably exceeding what you should be doing, which was kind of the question that was floating around in the paramotor world. There was a lot of drama about that. It's really unfortunate that it happened at the same time. Well, that happened to Anthony and caused all that drama and all the things. But meh and wonky, you're going to have to explain a little bit more of what you mean, Caleb. I need a little more of an explanation. Fast, pretty efficient, very strange feeling. Hell no, full speed on that one. It was already a little wonky to me. Wonky to you too, Matt. Okay, all right. So several wonkiness feelings from the Luna 3. Interesting. 2 wonky feelings out of 2 people I've asked. That is not looking great. I want to know more. What's the hardest part about paramotoring? Is the ground. Flying is the easy part. The ground's the hard part. I remember Anthony saying that. What's the hardest part about paramotoring? It's the ground. While he was being wheeled somewhere. That's so funny and not great. What glider/gliders are you doing SIV on? Perry, are you asking about me? Like what gliders am I doing SIV on, or what should you do an SIV on? Happy to talk more about SIVs, the pros and cons, when, where, why. Didn't have the balls to accelerate. I have a kid. It was fast at 1. I also have no idea why it's the Luna, because it has zero resemblance. Totally new product line. Interesting. Interesting. Interesting information. Okay, so I've never flown a Luna 2 or a Luna 1, so I have no reference. I also haven't flown the Luna 3, but I am very curious about it. And it sounds like it's a completely different wing, which would make sense because like, what all can you do to a wing? You know, that's kind of, I think, the spot that a lot of manufacturers are in. Is like, what else can you do to the fabric and lines and trimming to really make it different? And so that's kind of interesting that you say that. What more do you mean by that, Caleb? And Perry, good question about the SIVs. For you guys that don't know what an SIV is, it's a simulated in-flight maneuvers clinic. And the simulated in-flight maneuvers clinic is a place where you go and you practice doing all of the things that may happen in the sky. What may happen, like collapses or stalls or spins or your cravats or auto rotations, and all of the things that could go wrong. You go over a lake, towed up by a boat at an SIV. Now, I personally do my SIVs on my paragliding wings. I do it on my Blacklight, my U-turn Blacklight 2, and I do it on my Ozone Delta 4, my 2 paragliding wings. The reason I did my SIV on the paragliding wings is because I wanted to be comfortable and confident in the collapses and stalls and cravats on those wings, given that my thermaling flying is done on those wings. The thermaling flying is typically more turbulent, and I want to be confident on those 2 wings to handle those turbulent conditions, and if I get into a nasty situation, recover in those turbulent conditions. I'm less worried about it on a Viper, which is my paramotoring wing, because very rarely am I finding myself in those more turbulent conditions on the Viper. And so that is primarily why I did the SIV on my paragliding stuff. Okay, now, hopefully that answers your question, Perry. If it didn't, go ahead and ask again. Gonna take a sip of water. Let's see what Andrew says. Let's see, it sounds like the Luna 3 is more efficient with a higher aspect ratio. But the Luna 2 is a bit safer. You can use the brakes on the 2, all speeds, but not on the 3. Personally, guys, I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't think any wing should... I don't think any wing should be sent with a riser where you cannot touch brakes trimmed all the way out. I think on every wing, you should be able to touch brakes at any trim setting. Because if your trim buckle breaks, you need to be able to still steer the wing. So I think it's a serious safety hazard if you're unable to control the glider trimmed all the way out with your brakes. I personally do not like that. I think for the most part, most wings come with risers where you could still play with brakes trimmed all the way out. I think that's really what it needs to be. If you're saying that the Luna 3 can't, meaning like you trim it all the way out and you can't use the brakes, I'm not a fan of that. I don't really like that. Not looking forward to flying that, because if you break your trim buckle, now you're kind of screwed. I don't know how you really maneuver. So see, I think you should be able to pull brakes at any trim setting. What does wonky mean? Brian, good question. I think what wonky means is weird, unpredictable would kind of be my guess. Let's see. Matt, you texted me your thoughts on the wing. It was the exact one Anthony flew. Okay. Or crashed, excuse me. Okay, I have do not disturb on, so I'll read that when I'm done. I'm using my phone to live stream. I stole the joke from him. Nice, Michael. Let's see. Luna 3 has 0 similarities to Luna 2. Everything you can think is different, except they both have heavy fabric. Was it hard to launch, Caleb? I'm surprised that they go for such heavy fabric on that instead of going for a lighter weight fabric. But I guess people managed to launch it. I think a Luna 2 with lightweight fabric would have been really cool. Like a super easy to launch Luna. Wouldn't blast through turbulence quite as well. You know, lighter weight fabric moves around and bumps more than heavy fabric does, which is part of the reason I'm a little little hesitant about the Viper 6. So I don't know if you guys have heard about the new Ozone Viper 6, but it's essentially the Viper XC plus a bunch of other little things mixed in and lighter fabric. But I really like my Viper XC. Caleb, you still are rocking a Viper XC, aren't you? And let's see, wonky equals handles odd on the ground, tip lines interestingly biased. Energy management not as intuitive. Had to had an uneasy feeling flying it. Hard to explain. It just felt wrong. I understand that. Sometimes you fly a wing and it just does not feel right. Hard to launch, trimmed all the way in. Easy to launch, trimmed to what they said in the manual. Okay. I remember when Shri. I remember when Shri came through our progression class down at Salton Sea, and he had a Luna 2. And it wasn't like the easiest launching thing there was. Ozones definitely have launching and landing figured out. I will give them that. There's nothing like launching a Ozone wing. Very good, very good, very good. 30 people. Wow, impressive. Impressive, impressive, impressive. All right, guys, fire away your questions if you have any. Any questions, let me know. Let me see here, let me see here. What else has happened in the paramotor world since the last time I did one of these old livey thingies? I never really loved, well, actually I do quite enjoy doing these live stream things. These things, it's been so long since I did one. I should do them more often. I've already talked about that, but I always get nervous to do them because I don't think anybody's going to join. And then I don't think anybody's going to talk to me. So then I don't really want to do them because then I'm just going to be sitting here talking to my phone in a room by myself, which ultimately I do end up sitting in a room talking to my phone by myself. But I think they're a good way of sharing some information. So I'll share some things that are going on in our world, little updates on the Backcountry PPG ecosystem. We have been totally slammed busy this year with students, which I'm extremely grateful and excited about. We have had so far 4 classes, and it's only the end of May since April. So we had an April beginning class, a May number 1 beginning class, a May progression training, a May number 2 beginner class, and now on Saturday we're rolling into our June number 1 beginner class. And then we have another June advanced and we have another June beginner. So yeah, we have a lot of classes going on. They're all full. We have 8 students in the one that starts on Saturday, and we have 7 students in the one at the end of the month. We are actually over full because we really prefer to take just 6 students. But oftentimes, you know, you have like a couple or a pair or somebody that's the only class that they can make it work. So that's when they come. So yeah, this year has just been like so ridiculously busy, which I'm super excited about. And we've grown the training fleet of equipment. We have like, I don't know, 8 paramotors sitting out at the field and like a bajillion wings, which is super fun and exciting for us. And we doubled our field size, which is cool, and like lots of fun things. Now, a couple of the things. Let's see. What is the weight limits? Can you pack gear and camp from it? 2 of those questions. Weight limits, I'd say around 300, 315. Can you pack gear and camp from it? Absolutely. Missed the live chats. Good to see you, Jay. Hopefully we see you sometime this weekend out at the airport. I think, well, we've got a class starting on Saturday. I'm sure we'll see you some point. Am I coming to the Moses Lake fly-in? We missed you at the Sand Lake fly-in. I know, I missed the Sand Lake fly-in. I really wish I had gone to it, but it would have meant that I missed the first day of the last class. So another big update, kind of things that we've been, not a comedian, even if you try. Oh, Brian, I know I'm not a comedian. Don't you worry. Yeah, so it would have meant, Amber, that I would have missed the first 2 days of our last beginner class. Judson's been running or help running our beginner classes, and so I haven't had to be full hands-on with those, which has been really fun, exciting, and refreshing for me. I can focus on a lot of the other aspects of the business that need time and energy, but it doesn't mean that I could just not be there. So it was really hard for me to justify sneaking away for those days, despite him being, you know, the one running the class. I just felt like I had to be there at least for the first couple of days. And Amber, it was a 12-hour drive both ways. So it just didn't end up working out. Am I coming to Bad Apples yet next year? Yes, I am really hoping to go to Bad Apples with a couple of the crew or some of the dudes from the crew. It would be fun to travel all the way out there and spend like a week or whatever on that side of the country just flying. I think it's a must-have. The crew out there, dude, just the number of people, the 350 pilots or whatever it is that they had, ridiculous. I gotta be there. I gotta do it at least once. Luna 3 struck me as all-arounder, but missing key features for high-end sport or XC. It felt too I can't read that. Okay, advanced of a wing for not being better than other advanced wings that fill those roles. Basically, it didn't do anything better than the other wings in that category is what you're getting at, Caleb. I think they swung for the fences with it, and I'm not really sure where it landed. It seems to me that the people that are buying them are loving them, and they're selling. A lot of Luna 3s are getting out into the ecosystem. I'm sure Anthony's Crash, Love or Hate It, did help with that because it brought a lot of attention to it. But I'm just curious, where and what they were kind of shooting to compete with. Like, did they want the Luna 3 to be a Viper XC comparable? Or did they want the Luna 3 to be like a Freeride 2 comparable, or like a Warp 2 or a Snake 3? Like, what were they really shooting for with the Luna 3? I'm not sure. Ty, any news on a backcountry flying? Yes, Ty, we would love to do a backcountry flying. We have roughly kind of been planning for one in September at a place called Ibex. It's dry lake beds south of Salt Lake City. It's just outside of Delta. We're kind of hit or miss on the idea of it. A flying is a logistical headache, and it can be a real pain in the butt, but it can be really fun. And so we're kind of thinking about it. Location is super important, obviously. You got to have enough space. The location's got to be cool. You got to have things to go do. You got to have some form of services. There's got to be at least a gas station. There's got to be something nearby. And so it's not off the table, Ty, but it's not the primary thing on the table. We're really focused as a team on making our training the best possible training that we can, on improving our training structure, on improving our training syllabus, on improving our training ground school modules and supports and videos and just everything related to the training that we're really working on improving. And that's taken our time. So we're not super able to throw ourselves to kind of the event side of things is what I would say. And so that's kind of that. Brian, don't you worry. I won't quit the day job. Sounds like backcountry might need some new instructors with all that growth. We currently have 4 other instructors, including myself, or 5 instructors, including myself, 4 not including me. So we've got a pretty good team that we kind of are cycling through. Some people from East Coast came out here. Judson's obviously here full-time, teaching with us now. I have another instructor named Mike Wingard, super great guy if you've ever had the chance to meet him. And then my cousin Jordan, who has been helping us, and then myself. So we've got a handful of instructors. We're all staying like ridiculously busy, which is great for business. And we wouldn't have it any other way. And Judson is an awesome instructor. He is an awesome instructor. I will absolutely say that. He is a fantastic instructor. I'm super glad to have him around. I'm super glad to have him on the team. So, Michael, Moses Lake fly-in. I would love to. It's in September. I don't know the exact dates. I could probably pull it up on Facebook real quick and see. I'm hoping to go to Kupakar this year. How do I spell Moses Lake? Party in the desert, Moses Lake. Is that July? I'll talk to Caleb. Anyways, so what was I saying? I was saying something. Moses Lake flying. I will see. Oh yeah, Kupakar. This September, I'm hoping to go to Kupakar, which is the paragliding flying in France. I really want to meet the Ozone Paramotor team. I want to meet the team behind the Ozone wings. I want to get to know them a little better. I want to ask them a lot of questions. I ask like a ridiculous amount of questions to them, and oftentimes I tend not to get great responses or a lot of responses just because the questions require a lot more of an answer than I think they can give over like WhatsApp. Because I'm really curious and I just want to understand wings a whole lot better. It's one of the things that I'm really trying to figure out is more about wing design, more about how certain things affect certain things. Like how does internal pressure affect collapse recovery, and what makes a wing want to be more reopen prone or flying prone versus a wing being more stuck in a collapse prone. Example, like a lot of Ozone wings are more inclined to just want to reopen, and Dudek wings are more inclined to want to stick into the collapses. Luna is also a wing that kind of wants to stick. What are some of the contributing factors? Aspect ratio is often a factor in which influences and affects collapse recovery. But what else does? Internal pressure does, tuning does, trimming, not tuning, trimming does. And like, where does that all kind of tie in? I just kind of want to understand that more, and I want to talk to somebody who does it, and I want to sit down and like understand. And I would love to just like sit and be a part of a team that makes wings and like help make a wing. Not that I'd add that much value, but I want to learn a lot, because I think it would add a lot of value to the marketplace for me to be able to pass that information off to people. Because the more you know about it, the more you understand kind of what's going on, the better of a pilot you'll be. Okay, Luna 3 is much closer to a Warp 2 than VXC and Freeride. What? Interesting. I guess, what do you mean by that, Caleb? By that, do you mean it's a little trickier to launch? It's more of a solid profile flying through the sky. It's less rolly, a little bit more oscillating. I want a little bit more of an explanation there, Caleb. Okay, Andrew, sheath versus unsheathed lines. How big of a difference does it make in performance? I like how sheath don't tangle as easily. Andrew, so you, I believe, were the guy that came out and flew my Viper XC, or at least inflated my Viper XC. Here's kind of what I've seen with the sheathed, unsheathed line things. Unsheathed lines, in my opinion, I find not to be as easily tangleable. I find sheathed lines to be more tangly. Like my Viper XC has sheathed lines, and I find it to have compression tangles every single time I take it out of the box that I have to clear a little more aggressively than other wings. Before, of course, I go to lunch. The Viper 6, I don't find that to be quite as big of a deal with the unsheathed lines. Now, what do you get in terms of performance? Well, there's two things that you really get with unsheathed lines. One is kind of sort of a weight savings. You maybe save a little tiny itsy bitsy bit of weight. Two is efficiency. If you are accelerating the glider and speeding the glider up, you're on speed bar or you're trimmed up, and you're really trying to maximize your efficiency, which in our case, efficiency is your fuel burn, right? Distance covered to fuel burns to time it took to cover the distance. It is going to make a difference in a long flight, especially at a higher rate of speed. Like if you're going to trim it out and you have unsheathed lines and you fly for a longer distance for a longer time, you're going to notice the difference. Now, in the paragliding world, efficiency is glide slope and how well you ride and soak up lift. And you definitely notice unsheathed lines there, because you will glide farther with unsheathed lines. It's just that much more efficient. Do I think it's worth it? I mean, it's like, for the normal guy, no, Andrew, I don't know if I'd say it's worth it. I don't think I would find much benefit in having unsheathed lines over sheathed lines. And if I was going to pick, I'd probably pick sheathed lines. If I was going to do like the Adventure Wingman, which is the 1,100 mile cross country, I may find myself gravitating towards the unsheathed lines, because I'm going to be slicing that edge of maximum possible performance in terms of efficiency, and every little thing I can get will help. Now, on the Adventure Wingman, we add so much gear and stuff to our paramotors that all of a sudden we add so much extra drag that it may not even make a difference. But if I was going to, split that line and get the best, most efficient possible thing I could, I'd probably go with unsheathed lines. So that's kind of what you're looking at, is you just get like a little as tiny bits of efficiency. It also may help with your top speed. If you're going to cruise at, I don't know, like 1 mile an hour faster, if you're cruising at 32 trimmed in on a Viper, or, if you're cruising at 50 trimmed on bar on a Viper XC, you may get 51 on bar on a Viper 6. So it gives you like a little tiny bit. I haven't seen it to be like that much in the paramotor world, but in paragliding I noticed it. Okay, when you train, can you rent one or do you have to already own one? Mad Max, the Moto Mutt, you do not have to own any gear when you come through our class. We provide everything for you to train on. We don't require you to buy stuff. We don't nag you to buy stuff. Come through, try it, fly it. If you decide you like it, buy it. If not, go home and smile about the experience that you had. Don't require you to buy gear, and we do provide everything for you. What do we got? Dash M, I didn't know you had a version 2 toggle. What's the difference? Also, why reinforcements? Was it by failure or improved design? So, Dash, good questions. Let's talk about the 2 toggles real quick. I won't make this too long for all of you guys. We've got version 1, we've got version 2. Version 1 is my preferred and favorite. Version 2 is something that a select few pilots are going to prefer. Version 1 is my favorite because when you are pulling brake on version 1, it is flat and even on this lower platform, right? It's flat. Even if tip steer is tied in, it's still flat because your brake has more pressure than your tip steer line does, okay? Version 2, here's your brake line, here's your tip line. As you press, it goes at a slant and is a little uncomfortable. Now, the benefits of version 2 is you get more twisting effect, which allows you to activate tip steer and not brake when you'd like it. That way, like if you're coming in on landing approach, you can kind of twist and just get tip steer. Or like if you're diving and you want to be a little more aggressive, you can pull the tip steer in kind of like this and get more tip. Now, this allows you to still do the same thing. You could still twist and get tip steer, as you can see. It's not as effective as this, but it is effective. My preferred style of flying this is fingers up here, right? That's not on there. You've got 2 fingers up here on your throttle hand, or you've got 4 fingers up here on your non-throttle hand. That gives you the full twist effect. I originally made this. I switched to this because I found this to be so much more comfortable for the cruising. Like you're cruising, you don't want to be like slamming this finger down like this. Now this I also don't find to have as comfortable of an upper holding position for your throttle hand. Like it's kind of hard, as you can see, to hold with these 2 fingers, your throttle hand. It's easier to hold, of course, with your non-throttle hand, but with your throttle hand, it's hard, and you can't really grab in the middle because it pulls weird. So anyways, that's version 2. Now, the reinforcements, we had a toggle brake. We had a guy that was pulling big G-forces, and he was able to separate it out. It didn't, like, destroy on him, kept going, but it was separated, so we added these reinforcements for the pilots that fly more aggressively. For the casual pilot, it's unnecessary. There's your quick answer to that. The science of it is, what are you trying to understand? Yes. Are you the average weight? Are you an average weighted pilot? Well, I'll tell you what I weigh, Mark. Sorry to go on a tangent about the toggles. I tend to go on tangents about them all the time. Mark, what do I weigh? I'm 186 pounds this morning. That is my weight before, of course, a paramotor and everything else. And that fluctuates from about 185 to 192. Is kind of where I'm bouncing. I'm trying to get back down to 175. So over the winter time, after I hurt my feet, I decided it was going to be weightlifting gung-ho time. And I gained all the way up to 200, or I bulked all the way to 200. And now I'm just trimming back down to 180, 175 is kind of where I want to sit. Maybe 170 if I feel like I want to torture myself on the diet part for a while. But I already bought a bigger wing, and so now my bigger wing is going to be too big if I trim down to 170. So I have to keep that in mind. Let's see. I rode mid-Atlantic BDR with a guy who does the wing only, but he also has to start at the top of mountain in thermal and the thermals Mercy. Yes, that's paragliding. That is a super fun sister sport to paramotoring where you are riding just the thermals, which are pockets of hot rising air, and you're riding that thermal to the top, shooting to the next one, riding that one to the top, shooting to the next one, riding that one to the top, shooting to the next one. Totally different sport. In paragliding, you're not at all flying within proximity of the terrain, or if you are, you're really trying to get away from the terrain, and you're spending a lot more time in turbulent conditions in paragliding because you're flying in the middle of the day when there are thermals, because that's when you need to fly. And turbulence, in a very basic sense, is the wind changing in direction and or speed. So a pocket of rising air next to wind that's blowing horizontally is a turbulent experience. So it's different. It's just different. I love paragliding. I love to go up and it's just me and it's the wind and it's the wing. It's a beautiful thing, but it's not at all the joy of paramotoring where I'm flying within proximity of the terrain, over the trees, kicking the trees, foot dragging the water, diving down the tree line. Totally different experiences, equally cool, just different experiences. In paragliding, you are also far more at the mercy of conditions than you are at paramotoring. Now, for a really fun paramotoring flight, we want perfect, but we can paramotor in a lot more than you can in paragliding because in order to stay up in paragliding, you have to have those thermic conditions. And so you're a little bit more limited in that sense. I'd say here in Utah, where we have a beautiful mountain range, we probably can fly like 40% more than paragliding guys can. I could totally be wrong on that, but that's kind of what I've seen. Okay, let's see. Good info. Thanks. Yep, that was me at Solitaire. I fly the Viper XC. I fly the Viper XC with a Moster. Wait, I'll fly the Viper XC with my Moster at some point. I had my Atom 80 the other day. Andrew, you're welcome to come fly my Viper XC or my Viper 6. They are 20s, so they're probably a little big for you. I think I mentioned you'd probably want an 18. Do keep in mind that the Viper 6 is more efficient, so the weight ranges are different. I actually fit in the weight range of the 18 Viper 6. I do not fit in the weight range of the Viper XC 18. So keep that in mind. Take a peek at those. The big thing between the Viper XC and the Viper 6 that I see that keeps me wanting to be on a Viper XC instead of a Viper 6 is the fabric, the lightweight fabric for slightly heavier fabric. We all know like Ozones are super great because they're really, really easy to launch because they have the lightweight fabric. Well, the Viper XC is actually slightly heavier fabric than the whole other lineup of wings. Well, I don't find that slightly heavier fabric to be hard to launch, but I do like that it's a little bit more robust. Now, the Viper 6 fabric is like the lightest of any wings in their entire lineup. It's lighter than the Spiders. It's lighter than the Scirocco's. I would rather have the slightly heavier fabric, not because of launching characteristics or durability, but more so because the heavier fabric is going to be less mobile, less movey, less dancy in turbulence. The Viper 6 is going to move more than the Viper XC is. I fly more in turbulence than I would like to admit, and I like how the Viper XC feels in the bumps. I didn't like how the Viper 5 felt in the bumps, and the Viper 6 has got more similar material to the Viper 5. So the Viper 6, I'm not sure how I'm going to like in turbulence. The Viper XC, I know I like in turbulence. And so that's kind of a bigger deciding factor for me on the Viper XC versus Viper 6 comparison. Now, that's unfair of me to say that I don't like the Viper 6. I can't say that I do like it. I haven't really flown it. But that's my main reason I'm kind of still bullish on the Viper XC and a little bit nervous, not nervous, but a little bit more hesitant on the Viper 6. Okay, let's see. Do you do tandems to make sure it's something you will enjoy before you fully commit? I oftentimes don't do tandems. How often should lightweight fabric be inspected if only used on grass? Rich, I personally recommend that you inspect your wing every single season in February or March, once a year. It's kind of, your question's kind of hard. I would recommend you have it checked every season. Now, does that mean it's going to deteriorate every season? No, it's more of a question of how you use the wing. Are you aggressive on it? Are you casual on it? Meaning, are you going up there and ripping sat spirals and wing overs every single flight? Are you heavy on the wing? Or are you just going and cruising? Because the two things are very different in terms of wear and tear on the glider. If you're aggressive, maybe 2 times a year, or excuse me, 1 time a year. If you're casual, maybe once like every other year, which is what wing manufacturers recommend. But I do know pilots who are heavier on their wings, even overloaded, pushing hard every flight, who have reached breaking points in the gliders because they haven't had them checked because they're flying so hard. Now, thanks for the info on toggles. I have a set that I haven't installed yet. I feel like they're well built, and I don't fly too aggressive, so hopefully won't need the reinforcements. You don't need the reinforcements, Dash, unless you are an aggressive pilot. I don't even have the reinforcements on my sets. I don't really plan to take mine off and go have them reinforced. These are for guys. We started doing these for everything, or every toggle. We've started doing this for every toggle moving forward. But really, these are for guys that are ripping really hard on wings all the time. And that's just not me. That's not most people. What do you carry when you're doing big backcountry remote flights? Tools. I don't actually carry any tools. Maybe a multi-tool is what I'll carry. If I'm going to fly kind of deeper, I like to have a couple of things. First off, I like to have some calories. There's a protein bar that's got like 400 calories, 30 grams of protein. I rock one of those. Throw it in there. I've got some form of food if I need it. The other thing is I like to have a little bit of water. Every ounce of water is weight. So how much you bring is really a question of how much you're comfortable launching with. But I bring water. The other thing that I bring is fire starting tools. So I bring something that I can light, a lighter, and something that can be lit, a fire starting tool. That way, if I do end up having to stay the night and it gets cold, I have the ability of creating a fire. So those are really like my minimums of what's in my little kit that I bring with me if I'm going to go deeper into the backcountry or the mountains, or I'm going to fly further out there into the no man's land. Other things that are worthwhile having, I actually have hand heating packs that I'll throw in there, because the heating packs are like any amount of heat, just a little bit of heat makes a big difference. So if you're not able to start a fire for whatever reason, having hand warmers that you can shake up, put on your hands, put on your feet, make a huge difference. So those are something I definitely recommend. And bandage wrap is something I recommend. If you cut yourself and you start bleeding, having the ability to put some pressure onto that and stop that is good. Really, that's kind of what I bring. I do rock a Garmin InReach Mini 2 if I'm going deep. It's just a safety device. It is convenient for my flying because it's also good for my motorcycle riding. I ride a Yamaha Tanneray. I do backcountry adventure motorcycle riding as well. So having a Garmin InReach Mini 2 that can do both jobs is quite convenient. But I don't like to go super far out there without having my little kit, which is those things that I just talked about. All right. MacFly guy. MacFly. Does Ozone say you should buy their wings at 50% of their all-up weight, trying to decide on 28 or 26 at 280 all-up? I don't know what Ozone actually recommends, but I'll tell you what I recommend. I like to be within about 5 to 10 of the max loading. I think if you're at higher altitudes, I would go to somewhere around 510. If you're at lower altitudes, I'd go to max loading to 5 up, is kind of where I like to be. I don't like to go overloading. I'm willing to, depending on fuel, meaning if I usually fly with like 10 liters of fuel, and if I put 20 or 18, I'm overloaded, I'm still kind of willing to do that. But I don't like to be super light on the wings, personally, just because I'm looking for more of the agility. If you're not really looking for more agility, having a little bit of a bigger wing is going to make your launches a little easier. You're going to run slower. You're going to lift off faster. You're going to fly a little slower in the air. You're going to maneuver a little slower in the air. On landings, you're going to come down a little bit slower. You're going to set down a little slower, and you're going to set down a little softer. So those are kind of the differences you get when you go from sizes. So like the 28 Sirocco 3, your launching speed is going to be a little slower. Your launching distance is going to be a little shorter. Your landing speed is going to be a little slower. Your set down speed is going to be slower as well. On the 26, you're going to have more agility in flight. You're going to have more speed. To some degree, speed is safety. You don't want to be too slow on a glider, because if you find yourself in wind all of a sudden and you're unable to penetrate the wind, you're unable to speed yourself up, that is in some way an unsafe thing, and you want to be on the faster glider. A good rule of thumb is to be on the smallest wing that you are comfortable on. So if you're comfortable and you fit safely in the weight range of the 26, I would probably go with the 26. Being on the smaller wing gives you that much more speed, as long as you're within the weight range. I wouldn't go to a 28 unless you're at higher altitudes or you're right on the edge of the 26. That's kind of my thought process on it. Andrew, thanks, man. You can fly my 20 Luna 2. I would actually love to fly your Luna 2. Andrew, please, if you are around this coming weekend, I'd love to link up sometime and fly that Luna 2. I've always wanted to fly it for no other reasons than to say I did and to try it, which would be kind of cool. With wing design, there's one aspect that manufacturers don't disclose, and I'm not sure what it is. What makes the freeride and carve so rolly compared to other wings at the same aspect ratio? Matt, that is a good question right there. I think something that's hard to... I think one thing that makes a difference with the roll, I think that the profile thickness to a degree makes a difference. I think how arched the wing is to a degree makes a difference with how rolly a glider is. Do I know exactly what makes a wing more rolly than not rolly? No, but I think wing manufacturers keep a lot of information from the end users. They don't share, in my opinion, nearly enough information about their wings. I think it would be extremely, extremely beneficial to a wing manufacturer for the lead designer or the team of designers to actually sit down and go through their thought process and reasons for making the wing a certain way. Like, I'd love to see the Viper XC team sit down and be like, here's the reason we did this. Here's why it's this aspect ratio. We made it this thin instead of this thick because of this. The internal pressure, blah, blah, blah. I would love that. Now, would a lot of people love that? Maybe not, but I think I would gain a lot of benefit from that. That is part of the reason I really want to go to Coupa Car and meet the Ozone team, because I want to sit down with somebody who understands wing design to a much greater degree than I do and ask all of these questions and gain a better understanding. In the paramotor manufacturing and designing of paramotoring, we as a community, we as pilots can understand it a whole lot better. There's not a lot of mystery to it. You know, you put a tube here and here, sits this far away, this high. It all makes way more sense. It's way easier. In wings, it's wind and pressure and tuning and size and pockets and airflow inside and how they cut everything, and it's like so much. We don't understand it because nobody talks about it. No wing manufacturers have these conversations. You know, when they post their wings and they do the write-ups, they just say it's got the flavorful roll that every pilot desires. What the heck does that mean? Like, how did you achieve the roll? What did you change? Like, what did you change? What's the secret sauce in there? They don't want to say because they don't want their competition. You know, that Ozone doesn't want Dudek to take their secret sauce and apply it to their wings. But I think end users and pilots would benefit greatly from a greater understanding. I know in the paragliding world, because I spent some time around the paragliding guys, that the paragliding community has a better understanding of wing design than the paramotor community does. And I think that because they have a better understanding, they're more able to accurately put themselves on wings. They don't go too far. Like, the really good paragliding guys, if they're not flying all the time or whatever, they'll downsize a little bit. They'll go down a little bit in terms of the performance stuff. They just understand more about what makes the wing move and perform that I wish I knew. I just want to know. I know paramotor people will really tell. Like, I've asked Ozone so many questions, and I get answers to about half of my questions. And given, maybe my questions are stupid, maybe they require extensive explaining, but still, why won't they tell us more? Anyways, that's what I think. All right. Masters of Disaster, Plumbing, and Air. I love that. I don't like the Spider 3 in turbulence. Well, I hate to say it. It's the only wing you've ever experienced in turbulence. So I'm sorry to hear that you don't like it. It's actually pretty good in turbulence. And your turbulence that you've experienced was pretty much just straight rotor. So there is that. Yeah, I carry a space blanket too. That's also a good idea. Fully loaded, about 320 on a 24. I think you're a little bit heavy on that 24 there, guy. But you're flying mostly at sea level, aren't you? 320 divided by 2.2 is 145 kg all the way up. We pull up flyozone.com/product/glider/spider-3. 24 is a 120 max loading and you're 145. Yeah, you're good 25 kg overloaded there, Michael. Just letting you know. RE, weight ranges. There's also collapse resistance / recovery characteristics based on where you're at in the range. Absolutely, Andrew. You're 100% right. If you are heavily loaded on the wing, you are more resistant to collapses. If you are lightly loaded, you are more prone to collapses. If you're heavily loaded, it's also more likely to recover quickly. If you're lightly loaded, it's more likely to recover slowly. So yeah, I think I would argue that part of the reason that wing manufacturers don't go in a lot of detail is because it just depends. That's probably the answer. It just depends. Like, well, what do you mean? Well, it depends on how heavy the pilot is and what the density altitude, because also, like, I thought about this. If you're at higher altitudes, if you're at 10,000, 15,000 feet and you take a collapse, you're going to need more altitude to recover that collapse just because there's less, the air is thinner than if you were at sea level. And also, how much gas did you have? That's totally going to change it. So, if you're at high altitudes or the density altitude for the day is much higher and you take a simple collapse, it could eat up so much more altitude than if you were at sea level. The other thing that I learned is when it came to collapses is I was listening to this guy in the paragliding world, this talk, and he was saying you can get an A-wing to take collapses like a D, and you can get a D-wing to take collapses like an A. It just depends on how you pull them. So I think there's so much to it. And I think to some degree, wing manufacturers don't talk a lot about it because it just depends. And if they put something out there, it could be wrong for half the pilots and right for half the pilots. Now, I could totally be wrong, and maybe this is just an assumption. But Andrew, that's kind of what I'm thinking, is like there's so much to it. And not just Andrew, I guess everybody, but Andrew, I was kind of responding to your question. Mad Max, the Moto Mutt. I kind of like that name too. That's kind of fun. I see you have one unusual roadblock. You still have one unusual roadblock. Max absolutely loves off-roading, but I would have to look into harnesses for him and train him while evaluating if it was even ethical. Unfortunately, I'm not at all sure what you're talking about, Mad Max. You're going to need to explain a little bit more. Do you have dates in mind for the advanced training courses this winter? Josh J. I do not. I will probably do an advanced training in November and December. I'm trying to do I'm thinking I'm going to probably swap to an every other month schedule for the advanced trainings. We're still selling every single month, but, we're kind of running out of time of hours. Ultimately, we sell, if we talk business for a second, we sell a service, which means we sell our time. We're only limited to how much time we can sell. Now, we can scale outside by selling other people's time, but there's also limitations to that. So, like, if we offer a lot of advanced training, we can't really offer as much beginner training, and which one makes more sense? So it's kind of the yin-yang balance that you've got to play. I personally really love doing advanced trainings in the wintertime because it's more than enough to fill the bucket for us, and it's not a ton of time, and then we can play more. And we spend so much of our summer and spring and fall just like hitting the ground running that being able to play a little bit more in the wintertime is nice. So, do I have an idea, Josh? No. But I am thinking Salton Sea. Josh J., if you could comment, let me know if Salton Sea is something that you would be interested in coming to. I would love to also do advanced trainings in other places. I'd love to find an Arizona location. I think that'd be fun. I really enjoy Corpus Christi. I wouldn't mind going back to Corpus Christi. I'm not really sure, but Salton Sea is kind of what's on the mind for right now. Regarding rolliness, oh yes, a while ago we were talking about that. Rolliness, my best guess is maybe a combination of line length to radius and curve of the projected wing, but don't know since no wing manufacturers publish this information. Yes, exactly what I'm talking about, Matt. No wing manufacturer. Oh, I'm back. Sorry, phone froze. Thought I was disconnected. Sorry, guys. False alarm. Yeah, wing manufacturers don't disclose any of that, which is, again, another reason that I would love to go and actually spend some time with a wing manufacturer. I'd be happy to go to, honestly, any wing manufacturer because all of them are going to be able to explain more of this to me. I had the opportunity to talk to the owner of ITV. His name's Mika, and ask him questions, but there was a bit of a language barrier, and I'm not sure he really understood what he was asking. And I didn't mean to really intrude, so I only kind of got to ask some questions. But I think at this point, the wing companies, especially the big ones like Ozone, like Dudek, like Jin, the big dogs of the industry, really have an understanding of what's going on. They really know how to make exactly what they want. And so I want to know what goes into that secret sauce. I think it'd be beneficial to know. You'd be interested in an adventure fly-in. I would be interested in hosting an adventure fly-in sometime this fall. Same thing that I talked about with the advanced training, beginner training thing. Our team only has so much time, and if we dedicate a weekend to doing a fly-in thing, that's a weekend that we take away from doing a training thing, and currently we're training 4 weekends out of a month. So we're kind of out of time here. So I need to, I may honestly have to bring somebody in onto the team that's just on the event side of things, which is the fly-ins and small group trips and stuff like that. But I'm unable to dedicate my time 100% to that because time is spread through the training stuff. Let's see. Mad Max, the Moto Mud, I'm 145. Max is about 45. You're 145 pounds. Not really sure what you mean. It's all the fuel, 17-liter tank. That's probably why it's so fast. Yeah, Michael, that's why it's so fast, because you're 25 kg over. Now, if you launch with 8 liters of fuel instead of 17, 8 times, well, what is 8 divided? Doing math is hard. 8 divided by 3.75 is 2 gallons of gas. 2 times 6 I think it's 7.5 or whatever. 13 pounds. So yeah, you could bring that weight down a little bit there, Michael, if you need to. Heck yeah. Sweet, Josh. Well, I know there's quite a few guys who are interested in our advanced training this coming winter. I will probably have dates at the end of July. That's kind of when I plan our early winter time stuff. So Josh, look for dates come end of July for our wintertime training schedule. What are we saying here, Mad Max? Max is my blue heeler. He's logged over 2,000 miles on a motorcycle. Oh, your dog. Okay. Max absolutely loves off-roading, but I would love to look into a harness for him to train him. Yes. Flying with a dog is actually something you could do. I think the two kickers with there's a few kickers with flying with a dog. The first thing is it's loud, so if you're somehow able to muffle noise for him, get him something that covers his ears, that would be great. Second thing is the wind in his face. I don't think they really care like a human cares, but I get him cute little goggles. That'd be kind of fun. And third thing is if they're going to be comfortable, because they're going to kind of be hanging by a harness on your lap. You would actually strap them in on your lap or like right here on your chest to the carabiners, and then they'd sit on your lap. It's doable. I know people who have done it. It's something you probably do a few times. Unlike a motorcycle that's a little more easy to bring the dog, you probably wouldn't bring the dog all the time. 45 pounds. Max is 45 pounds. Yeah, I probably wouldn't bring a 45-pound dog with me flying more than maybe one time. 45-pound dog is 45 more pounds that you have to run with. And, if your paramotor is 70 pounds, you add 40 pounds, now you're at 100 and you had 45 pounds, you're now at 115 pounds. I mean, that's just unrealistic. Unrealistic, possible, but unrealistic. That's kind of how I would sum that up. Wow, good tangent. Good tangent, everybody. Oh, yes. Let's see. What do we got for questions? We're at 67 minutes. That is quite a while. Oh, yes, very good. I've missed 2 phone calls. Oh, probably covering the screen. Missed 2 phone calls and 4 text messages. Welcome to 67 minutes of Trevor's life. That is just a day in life. Weather tomorrow morning is hopeful. Yay for training schedule. Going to be at the airport tomorrow morning at, what time? dark 30. 7:30 to 8. Could fly with a trike. Oh, yes, actually, Daniel, great point there for Max. Or Mad Max, we should say. Trikes are great. Brian, if you're still listening to this, I would highly recommend getting into trikes, because with trikes, you don't have to think about the weight, you don't have to think about running, you don't have to think about launching, you don't have to think about landing. Well, you got to think about it, but you don't got to think about the physical part of it. And that is often what bites people. The physical part is the hard part. It's the running on launch, it's the running on landing. You got to think about your knees, you got to think about your ankles, you got to think about your hips, you got to think about everything. With a trike, dude, it just doesn't matter. You just go. Come into land, downwind, crosswind, into the wind, it doesn't really matter. You just land. I miss flying trikes. I should whip the old trike out and bring the trike out to the field and do a little trike flying. I do enjoy trike flying. So what's a beginner and intermediate class run a person? How many hours does it normally take to progress? Max wears goggles and earmuffs to combat the noise. 70 miles an hour on a bike gets loud. That's true. A beginner class with us is $34.50. That is a 10-day training course. We train about 7 to 8 hours a day, usually about 8 hours in the day. About 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the evening, starting around 7 and 8 a.m., 7 to 8 a.m., ending around 10 to 11 a.m., starting again around 4 o'clock p.m. and ending at 8 p.m. So there's our schedules. It, on average, takes people about 6 days to get airborne. They fly on either the 6th, 7th, or 8th day, and takes about 15 to 25 flights to be a proficient pilot. That does not mean that you're a super killer pilot by 15 to 25 flights, but that does mean that you are fully capable of going flying on your own safely and confidently. By 15 to 25 flights, you no longer really need radio help to get off the ground safely. It doesn't mean you can't use more radio help, but that's about what you see. Okay, unless you do it on a trike with the dog. Yeah, dog. Whoa, clicking buttons here. Whoopsies. Sorry, guys, I keep looking over here because the screen that I'm looking at is right there with all the comments. The comments on there. 70 minutes and 46 seconds. Way to go, team. Nice job. Hit me with those questions, everybody. What do you got? What do we got? Well, you and Judson ever gonna hook up with Tucker to start a larger school? I don't know how a school can get much larger than 2 classes a month with 7 people in each class, but hypothetically we could. Tucker is having the time of his life down in Arizona. So we are not real. We are in communication. We're friends with both Judson and myself are friends with Tucker, and we chat with Tucker all the time. And he's just having a great time up down in Arizona, and we're just busy up here in Salt Lake. He's planning to come up here and do some flying with us eventually, but I don't think a school is really what's on his mind. I'd love to partner with him on a school and, continue to grow our school and combine forces if at all that was something he was interested in. But, we're already so slammed busy. I can't imagine it gets much busier. And I'd love for it to get much busier, but I can't imagine it gets much busier. You don't have to think about a bad knee either. Exactly, Brian. With the trike, you don't have to think about a bad knee. How much experience should you have before flying a trike? You can fly a trike for your first flight if you really want to. You don't have to have any experience. A trike, the tricky part with a trike compared to foot launch is unlike in foot launch where you can just sidestep underneath the wing if it comes up crooked. On a trike, you can't sidestep under. You have to slightly turn your wheel and taxi underneath it. So it's super important that you have really good wing control and throttle control so you're not accelerating to the point in which you're at liftoff speed with the wing off center. You need to keep the wing under control as you're taxiing down the runway, lift off with the wing perfectly above you. So it's really about wing control and it's about throttle control. And more commonly, I see a lack of patience being what bites trike people. If you have a little bit more patience and you're a little bit more relaxed and you take a little more time, flying a trike is really not that hard. Wish you all the best, Trevor. Thank you, Vertical Line. Mad Max, the Moto Mutt. I've been looking at trikes. Do you put up students, or would I need to get a hotel and camping? You would have to get a hotel and or camping. You are welcome to camp at our airport. It is free camping. It is dry camping, so there is no power, sewer, or water. How much do you guys charge for the class? Beginner class is $34.50. Advanced class is $1,200. Beginner class, our next beginner class with space available is in July. It's July 20th to July 29th, and then we have an August 10th to the 19th, I believe. And starting in August, again, we have 2 classes every single month. We are booked up until July. What's a good place to sell your old wing? Jason, the best place to sell your old wing is on the Facebook Marketplace. There are a handful of Facebook groups that are made just for selling used paramotor equipment. I would list it on the Marketplace and then share it into those groups, and you will find somebody somewhere that is willing to purchase your wing, box it up, ship it to them. You've got a P2 cert from Aviator 2019. Also fly the Trike, fly products. Sweet. Do you certify PPG rating? I do. I do offer US PPA ratings to students if they would like them. We don't make it a mandatory thing, but we do offer them for students who would like them. So I am certified through the US PPA to pass out certifications. Best place to sell wing is new students who will want to buy the gear. That is also a good place to sell stuff. That is typically where we sell stuff. But used equipment, used older equipment, I don't actually know what you have, Jason, but used gear, the Facebook groups is a great place, great tool for helping sell stuff. I see great success with that. I've sold a handful of things myself on there, and that's usually what I recommend. The only other place, Jason, that you could list your equipment for sale is eBay. There is a possibility for getting that sold on eBay. I need cert for private property in order to fly. Okay. Vertical lines, if you want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to help you get your certifications. You will need to provide video content as showing me that you do know how to fly in order for me to pass it out, and or come to me to show me that you know how to fly. But I am happy to hand out P2 certifications, PPG 2, not P2, certifications if you would like. And Bill Rux, dang, you paid $2,500 for your paramotor lessons. I probably should have come up there with you guys. I'm just south of St. Jeezy. You should have come up here. I have a feeling I know about who you trained with, and we would have loved to have you up here. We train a lot of people, including people from St. George. We had a guy from St. George in our early May class, and he traveled up here, drug his camper, stayed at the airport, trained with us for the full 10 days. So come on up. Even if you've already started flying, come to one of our progression classes. We'd be happy to help you. We actually have one coming up in like 2 weeks. I think it has 4 people right now, which will probably be where we cap it at if I have it still available on the website. Oh, it is still available on the website. But yeah, our June 13 to 16 class is still got space. It's progression training. Pick up where you left off. Hello from Eric, your late April student. Flown twice in Moab so far. Thanks for all the great instruction. I like to hear that, Eric. I'm so glad to hear that you've flown since the class. I do know who I'm speaking to. I'm so glad to hear that, buddy. I love hearing the students went on to continue to fly. There's nothing that makes me happier than that. Oh, yeah, that makes me happy. Because, you know, Eric, I'll just add that a lot of students come through and then they never fly again. So seeing a student that actually comes through, that continues with it, goes home and actually does it, is just great. Super happy about that, Eric. You have a mechanic in-house? Yes, vertical lines. I do have a full-time mechanic on the team. His name's Mike. He is a 25-year mechanic for all kinds of things. And he is now a full-time instructor and mechanic for us. 10-day class is $1,200. Bill, no, the 10-day class is not $1,200. The 10-day beginner training course is $3,450. Our 4-day progression training course is $1,200. What is the percentage of students that purchased gear? It's somewhere around the 60%. 50 to 60%. And by that, do you mean the whole thing or one piece? So that 60% number, it might be 60, 70% if it's just one piece. If it's the whole thing, it's somewhere around the 40, 50%. What is progression advanced training like? Should we write our own syllabus with things we'd like to focus on? Improve energy management, spot landings would be my goal. Great question, Andrew. So we have a bit of an outline of things that we like to see from our students if they're not really sure what they like to work on. Oftentimes, we find that progression students that come through our class know what they would like to work on. They know their weak spot, aka they don't love how well they launch. They just want help launching, or they don't know, they want help landing. If they know what they want, we will help them with what they want. If they don't know what they want, we will help identify their weak spots and then help work on those weak spots and kind of work through the syllabus of things that we consider the after beginner training course stuff. So one of the things that we like to do is we like to stick a bag in the middle of the field. We like to have you kill your motor, glide in, and try and land on the bag. That is an exercise that's not only fun, but is spot landings and there's no going around spot landings, so you have to make it count. And so that's one of the things that we like to do. If you know what you want to work on, then great. We just kind of design a syllabus around what you want to work on. Like you want to work on improved energy management. We know exactly how we would help walk you through the energy management. We kind of have a structure as to here's the first, second, third thing that we like to do with you. Spot landings, like I said, We like to put a bag in the field after you've done a couple of them and try and land in the bag with your motor off. That's usually the hardest part, is actually turning it off and trying to spot land with it off. We work up to that by having you keep it on and do some approaches and then actually kill it and go in. Anyways, that is one of the ways that we find to be very helpful for spot landings. That is often something that we like to walk every student through at least a little bit. But if you already know, like improved energy management and spot landings, we would love to help you with both of those. All equipment, that's a great number. Yes. Vertical lines, we're grateful that I do communicate with the students prior and during the sign up process. So I kind of am good at weeding out people that aren't as serious. There's kind of two groups of paramotor people that come through the training courses. There's people looking for an experience, and there's people looking to get into this. We're happy to have both peoples. We don't mind. We're pretty good at kind of focusing on the people that are serious about this. And so we have a high percentage of people that actually come through who not only continue to pursue paramotoring, but also end up purchasing the equipment and go on to pursue paramotoring. That's kind of the big thing, is I don't love to watch people come through and then never do it again. I like to see them go on and fly, like Eric, the student who commented a minute ago, who's flown in Moab since our class, which is just music to my ears. How do you feel about the mini plane and the top 80? I don't have a ton of experience with either of them. I have seen and spent some time around mini planes. I have not spent any time around top 80s. From what I've heard, top 80s are absolutely bulletproof and you really can't go wrong. From what I've seen with mini planes, is they're a fine frame. They're nothing super fancy, but there's nothing wrong with them. They get the job done. It wouldn't be my go-to choice as far as frame goes, but if you're going to pair it with the top 80, then you can't go wrong. It's going to work. It's going to get the job done. If you can pair it with a top 80 and put a 140 prop on it, now you're really talking. I think that's a possibility. I'm not entirely sure. But a top 80 and even an Atom 80 with a 140 prop is like super nice. Trevor, do you have a pro pilot's license already? I do not. Andrew, we'd love to have you at the progression class if it's something you're at all interested in. We have a good structure for walking students through energy management, building up to barrel rolls, wing overs, all of the things. We also have great structure for spot landings. Please, if you're interested, hit me up, shoot me a message. Love to help you out. That's what I'm afraid of. I'll buy gear, pay for training, and never fly again. Once I get 10 to 14 days solo motorcycle trip, just thinking about flying instead sounds interesting. Well, good point, Mad Max. One of the things I've also seen through my years is that if the student buys the stuff, the likelihood and the statistical likelihood of them actually going on and doing it is significantly higher than those that don't. You're committed when you've bought gear. You are 100% committed to it. And also what I see is that as you go through the 10-day training course, because it's a very physically and mentally demanding thing, you kind of lose sight of the excitement you had at the start because you're just going through these motions and you're exhausted. But when you have the gear and you actually leave and now it's in your hands, the likelihood of you going and doing it is much greater. So I see the people that buy the stuff go on to actually do the thing. The people that wait, they're the ones that tend to not end up going and doing the thing. Very knowledgeable. How long you flying, Trev? I've flown since 2012. I flew my first flight December 31st, 2012. I trained in August of 2012, which is 12 years ago this August. That's crazy. That's just crazy. That's half my life, by the way. Very knowledgeable. Yeah, I did an advanced training and willing to make the 30-hour drive back. We would love to have you back, buddy. 2 feet in a heartbeat. Would love to have you back. I remember your advanced training very well last year. It was actually a whole lot of fun. Hey, Trevor, I just bought a new frame so I can start running a 140 prop. Can I use the same reduction 268? What frame did you get? And congratulations, Tim, on your new frame. I know your last frame was a hack job, but did you ever figure out the harness situation on your last frame or no? As far as which reduction can you run a 140 prop on, you can run a 140 prop on either reduction, the 268 or the 287. Now, Vitarazi says not to run the 140 prop on a 268. They say only run it on the 287. I've heard mixed claims of people saying that the 268 is more efficient and more powerful spinning the 140 prop. It is not made to spin the 140 prop, but allegedly that's what I've heard. All of my 140 prop motors are running a 287 reduction. I just choose the 287 reduction, and that's what I rock. For the school, I tend to run a 130. For myself, I run a 140. So there's my little spiel on the reductions. Can you explain ground speed versus airspeed? Yeah, vertical lines, I sure can. Just give me 1 second. Bought the Iris Infinity and still no getting pushed sideways on launch. Interesting. I'm not sure why you're getting pushed around on launch. Congrats on the Iris Infinity. That's a sweet frame. Are you rocking a Moster or did you go with the Polini? Oh no, you already told me. You're rocking the 268 reduction 140 prop. So you're rocking a Moster. Tim, I think you would have loved the Polini. Spending the 20 or the whatever half hour with you on the field, I think you should have rocked a Polini. But you'll love the 140 prop. Ground speed versus airspeed. Well, essentially, airspeed is your actual true speed of the aircraft. Ground speed can change because it is influenced by wind. In the sky, there's no such thing as wind, meaning your glider is going to do 30 miles an hour regardless of the wind. But your ground speed may vary from 20 to 40 miles an hour if you have speed or wind. So that is the difference between ground speed and airspeed. You said physically and mentally demanding. You left out sensory overload. This is true. Sensory overload and all the other emotions that you feel during the training, Brian, it's definitely an intense 10 days. It's far more than I think people think it is. And, you know, one of the cool things with the training classes that's so fun for me and hopefully was fun for you too, Brian, because of it's somewhat of a difficult thing, we as a group bond so much more, and the relationships that you build at paramotor training tend to last a lot more than relationships you build doing other things, because at least guys tend to bond over struggling over things and physical things and stuff like that. So as you go through a 10-day course where it's this mentally, physical, and stressful, exhausting thing, you tend to bond really well with the individuals. So to this day, a lot of my best friends, in fact, almost all of my best friends and my friends, are ex-students or previous students that I helped go through the training class that just kept coming around, and now to this day are great friends. So I love that about the training. One of the things also that I was talking with my dad about is that, you know, how often in life do you get to go through something that's difficult and learn a new skill and also something that's scary at the same time? Like, how often in life are you going to a class where you're learning something completely brand new and it's really hard and scary with a big reward? Like, it's not that often as you age in life that you're doing something brand new for the first time. Like, there reaches a point in which, like, you've learned how to ride your bike, you've learned how to drive, you know, you've learned to do the things. You don't learn a lot of new things as you tend to age in life. And paramotoring is this brand new, completely different from everything else, difficult physically, difficult mentally, big reward, and scary. You're flying through the sky, for some people at least, right? So that's such a special thing that I think people also kind of overlook. Like, you know, you're learning this scary, difficult thing, and you only get to learn so many things for the first time in life, just realistically. And I think that's really special and fun. And when you think of it like that, I really like it. I love being able to offer that to people. I think a lot of people get a lot of joy and reward out of going through training. Beyond the flying itself, I think there's just a lot of reward and stimulation to learning something new and difficult for the first time. Keeping the same motor, going to get a Polini if and when I upgrade. Sounds good, Tim. I think you will love the Polini. My first flight, my instructor at Aviator, AJ, told me to come back and land. We had comms out, and I responded. Sorry, Dave, I can't do that. It was a blast. So, cool story. Dave Taylor, I think is who you're talking about. Is that who you're talking about? Vertical lines? We talking about DT, the one and only? Because he is actually in Utah at our field helping us train classes, which is cool. He is one of the 4 instructors on the team this summer, helping us sling classes, which is good. Cool. Holy cow. 89 minutes and 52 seconds. We are now an hour and a half into this live stream. What a joy it has been. We will go to 2 hours as long as we can continue a stimulating and exciting conversation. Good times. Good times. I'm excited about this summer. I'm excited about the up-and-coming progression classes. We have 36 people in here. That is pretty impressive. Thank you all to the 36 of you that have been listening. Please fire away questions if you have any of them. I am more than happy to talk about anything and more than happy to go on long tangents, which is something I tend to do regularly. What do we got? I've seriously considered Aviation Academy and making a career. I just question if I'm capable. It was not. It was AJ at Aviator. All right, vertical lines. No problems. No problems. Having comms out is a thing. It's not a very fun thing. It's definitely a scary thing. And Mad Max, you've definitely considered aviation as a career. Aviation as a career is cool. I think in some way it's a bit of a glorified bus driver. You're kind of just flying super big planes, very little. You spend very little of the time actually doing something. You spend a lot of your time sitting. It's not for me. I could see myself enjoying it. I would enjoy flying smaller aircrafts in more dynamic locations like Alaska, like flying out to little villages and delivering food. I think that would be far more fun for me. But as far as like a general aviation community, I think, or a career, I think it just sounds a little bit boring. But it pays well. Pays well. And vertical lines, yes. AJ was a fantastic instructor. I had the privilege of meeting him the first time I went out to Aviator, actually 2 years ago, like right now, in 2022, right before he ended up leaving. I think he left in 2022. Anyways, had the honor of meeting him and spending some time asking him some questions. I think he was a fantastic instructor. Glad I got to meet him. He was hoping to come out to one of our classes one day and just kind of check it out. But as life goes, things, you have plans. They tend not to turn into reality more often than not. That's just what happens. It is just what happens. It is what happens. Sorry, getting distracted over here. Getting distracted, guys. Getting distracted. That's what I was thinking. Bushcraft, post office, or helicopter tours. Yeah, it'd be cool. I think helicopter tours would be fun, but, aviation career is, at some point, it just becomes a job, just like everything else. At least it's a job that you can enjoy. I support it. I think there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through. I wouldn't say there's a lot of hoops, but there's a lot of time you got to invest to build in the skill set. Very cool. Very cool. All right, guys, what do we got? Any questions, any concerns, any thoughts, anything you'd like to talk about? What do we got flowing? What do we got? What do we got? Do you certify for tandems? What does it cost? Tell me a little bit about tandem training. You need to put your schedule just like your classes so that I can keep up on. You need to put these on your schedule just like your classes so I can keep up on them happening. Well, I think I should ask the question, is this something that I should do? Is this something that I should do like every other week? Should I shoot to do a live stream like this every other week for like an hour, 2 hours? Or is this something I should do just on a random basis? I think I said early on that my hesitation with doing these is that I just don't want nobody to be here and I don't want to sit and talk to nobody. But realistically, I think people tend to come and listen. See you later, Caleb. Thanks for chatting. So I should probably schedule these. Thanks, Caleb. I hope to see you again this summer. Come out to Utah. And yeah, where was I at? Ooh, Tim, do you certify for tandems? What does it cost? Unfortunately, I am not an instructor administrator. I do not certify for tandems. I don't offer tandem classes. I'm hopeful that this year will mark my 2 years as an instructor under the USPPA, which was reason I did not get approved to be an instructor administrator. If I reapply come 2 years, which is this month, then maybe they accept me and I can offer the tandem training. Can I tell you a little bit about what tandem training is? Yes, tandem training is a fairly simple concept. I have full confidence that I'd be able to teach it, as I've taught people how to do tandems in the past. Essentially, the big things with tandems is, number one, the ground control is different because you're hooked into a bar, the wing is in between you, and when you're inflating sideways, you're inflating with a built-in weight shift. So you have to have really solid wing control and understand that it's going to inflate differently. The other thing is that you have to have a good talk with the person in front of you to help kind of communicate as to like where you're going and what you're doing. Really, it boils down to keeping the glider under control. Then once you start to go, the big thing is that you have to have patience because we want to have instant, gratification. We want to be in the sky. Well, you can't just like hammer all of the brakes and just pop into the sky. So you need to commit to a longer launch and get off the ground. Once you're off the ground, it's important that you keep yourself, you always keep a motor out landing in mind, which is more important because if your motor dies, you're going to dive and you have half the glide slope that you have with a regular motor and you're going to land a whole lot harder and faster than you would on a foot launch. So it's super important how you fly is a little bit more on the cautious side. Now, landing is pretty simple. Depending on how you configure the hook-in points, the passenger will either hang below you or above you. I personally prefer the passenger to hang slightly above me. That way they lift off the ground on launch, and that way I set down first on landing. And you just kind of fly yourself in like a foot drag and set yourself down nice and soft. And the passenger commonly just sits down, so you just stuff all of those brakes and stop yourself from landing on top of them. And you set the wing down to the side, or you help stand them up, and then you turn and you set the wing down. That's really it. It's not a complicated or difficult thing. The difference is the maneuverability is a whole lot less. So Tim, one of the things that I say is oftentimes it's younger guys. Like, you guys can get away with, we can get away with stuff because we have the physical strength to like compensate. With tandems, you can't compensate with physical strength because you have mobility difficulties because you're now hooked in a different way. So that's kind of my spiel. Is there a quick way of getting all the sand out of your wing? Chris, yes, there's 2 good ways of getting the sand out of your wing. Flip it upside down while kiting and mash the brakes and lift it off of the ground with backfly and then smash the brakes. Number 2 is do wing overs, and as you're coming over top, pump the brakes a couple of times and it will kind of slow the wing down like this, as you do the wing over, and then you kind of slow it down and the sand falls. And then that's usually how I do it. What is your suggestion on throttle set up with throttle lock? I have a problem with my hands cramping to the point it's almost scary. I always rock a off-grid Aviation throttle. I think they have the best cruise control. They have the little button thing you push, and then you just tap the throttle and it pops off, and it's adjustable with a little dial. There's another throttle called the Iris No BS throttle. I think that one's okay. It wasn't my favorite in terms of geometry. Also, I don't love a throttle that sticks, right? So it sticks. And I don't like that. I like the throttle to easily disengage by just simply tapping it. But it's also a choice. What is min to toss a reserve? Will it work at 300 feet in good conditions? Dude, I've seen reserves work at 100 feet. I think 150 feet is where I would draw that that line of it might not work below here. Thinking about shortening the brake lines on my Roadster 3. What's a safe length? Should I leave it alone? I feel like I'm deep in the brakes on takeoff. Probably bad form on my part. So, Eric, I tend to find that there's about 2 to 4 inch, let's say 2 inches of slack that can be pulled out of a Spider 3 and a Roadster 3. 2 things I think you would benefit greatly from, Eric. Number 1, I would reduce your brake lengths by 2 inches. Number 2, I'd put these on them. Okay, it's not just a shameless plug, but these do reduce the distance from the platform, as I call it, to the brake line by, I believe, 3 inches. So now you're shrinking down that distance and you're reducing your brake lengths by 2 inches. You just now got, I don't know what it is, 7 inches more authority. So you need to keep that in mind when you go to launch, that pulling down to where you've been pulling down is going to give you a whole lot more beans. But also need to keep in mind that as you come into land, that it's going to give you a whole lot more beans. So I would probably change to these first, and then I would shorten brake lengths if you still deem necessary. But these do make a big difference with that. And or shortening brake lengths 2 inches would make a difference with that. What are your final thoughts on the Anthony crash? That's actually a bit more of a conversation. Let me loop back to that in just 1 second. I fly on the beach all the time. I just fly the wing upside down and all the sand falls out. Yep. Eric, I found shortening my Spider 3 brake 3 inches was my happy place. No trailing edge deflection, trimmed fully out either. 3 inches is good. I think you can go all the way to 4 inches, Eric and Andrew. I just tend to start people at 2. Start at 2, see how much slack you got, then work down a little bit more. I think on my Viper XC, I took 4 inches out right away, and I never had to touch it. I think taking out a little bit as you go, Eric, is a great plan. And then let's see. It builds your brand 1 a month. Thank you, Brian. I may do so. 1 live stream a month. Thanks. I currently do tandems, but would like to make it legal. Well, Tim, it's at some point just a thing that someone signs off. You just hand them money and they sign you off. And that's the unfortunate part about the US, not necessarily the USPPA, but certifications to a degree. Well, honestly, Tim, who's really going to come find you? Max Fly Guy, worth the watch. Thank you. Brandon Smith, very new PPG pilot with some major health issues that kept me from flying post-training, but for a few home flights. I believe I remember. I'm finally able to PPG again. Advice on getting back into the sky when feeling brand new all over. I want to talk about the Anthony crash. I haven't forgotten about that. What parts of weather do you like to pay attention to? Mad Max, that's a big question. And Brandon, that's a big question. So I'm going to start with Brandon's question. So what do I recommend? Advice on getting back into it after not having flown for a while. Number 1 is get comfortable with the wing again. Inflations, kiting, hooking in. Get comfortable with all of that. Number 2, get comfortable with the motor again. Throttle, power, kill switch. Get comfortable with those 2 things, the wing and the motor. Once you've done that, then work back into maybe even doing a power taxi, and then back into flying. So that's kind of the process that I would go through, Brandon. I would go play with your wing for, a handful of mornings and maybe an evening if you have good wind, and just get comfortable pulling those brakes and holding those brakes again and inflating and grabbing your A's and hooking in. And then I'd actually go to like at your place and pull the motor out and put it on your back and then start it and then run it up and then lean back a few times into it and get comfortable with that throttle, get comfortable with that power, get comfortable with the kill switch, put it all together, maybe even do a power taxi, which I believe you did at our class, and then I'd go fly. And I'd have no hesitation saying go fly because you absolutely crush it at the class and you have the skill set. You're just going to be a little nervous. That's why I like to reintroduce the things to you again. Okay, now working my way back up to the Anthony crash. Which parts of weather do you like to pay attention to? Well, there's kind of a few main things. Number 1 is like the wind. Number 2 is possible front activity, thermal activity, wind shear, the clouds in the sky. Those are kind of the things that I pay attention to. We teach it at length at the class. Okay, so the Anthony crash. What are my final thoughts on the Anthony crash? I think the Anthony crash unfortunately painted paramotoring in a really poor light. I think it was really unfortunate what happened to Anthony. I think it's a good example that you can cross your T's and dot your I's with all things but one thing, and that one thing can be enough to slap you, as I kind of say. I think it's super unfortunate that he didn't catch that in his line check. One of the things that I'm very adamant about every time I take off is looking up and checking carabiners, risers, lines, risers, carabiner. I do this whole circle thing because I've taken off with really big stress tangles that I was able to identify quickly and shake out before doing anything. Checking for stress tangles and checking lines is another reason I'm very adamant about not doing acro low right off takeoff. So I don't take off and immediately do something, because you may have a tangle that's changing the way the wing is flying and you don't realize it yet because you haven't checked, and you go do something and you spin a wing. It's happened. That's why I'm adamant that when you take off in a straight line, you clear lines, then you proceed. After you've cleared lines, now that's a whole different story. But you need to get up, you need to clear lines. I think the other thing with Anthony's crash is I think he got a little bit sloppy. I think he was a little sloppy with his checks. He was a little sloppy with crossing his T's and dotting his I's, as I refer to it as. Right? He kind of jumped really quickly into mashing speed bar. Right? He took off. If you watch the whole video, he took off and he just immediately hit bar, and then he turned and like immediately hit it again. And I just think that for a first wing or first flight on a new wing, that's just like a little premature, a little fast, a little sloppy. I would have just waited a little bit more time. You hadn't even flown the wing. You've never turned. You've never played around. You never felt what the wing flies like. You just immediately fully accelerate the glider. I think it's not a bad habit. In fact, it's a good habit to not do that on like your first flight. And just like for me, the first flight I always say is to taste it. I just want to taste it. Like the Viper 6, I went up, it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I just wanted to taste it. I wanted to see what it felt like to turn. I wanted to see if it stuck in the, stuck when I brought the wingtip down. I wanted to see what it felt like when we climbed and we dove, and just get me a little comfortable with the wing. And then I can push speed bar. Then I can, push limits or whatever. But I just like to get a little more comfortable with the thing before I'm just accelerating it. So I think it was an unfortunate turn of events that led to that outcome, unfortunately. Because you could take off, you could take off 1,000 times and just immediately mash speed bar. New wing, not new wing, and be totally fine. It just was super unfortunate that on that day, that wing, that guy, it happened that way. Do I think that the thing that I think that crash did that I didn't love was that it made paramotoring seem really unsafe in the way that you just go fly and you fall out of the sky to an untrained eye from someone who's not a pilot. Because it just seemed like the guy was flying and all of a sudden it just disappeared and he spun and he hit the ground. And I think the reality is that for most pilots, like 90% of pilots, no, maybe not 90% of pilots, but a good percentage of pilots, they don't ever push speed bar. Like if you never push speed bar, you could have flown with that stress tangle every single day of your flying career and it would have never been a problem. It's when you fully accelerate the glider and you push to the edge of that wing's capabilities, which is fully accelerated, that now little things are a much bigger deal. And so, I just think it was kind of sucky to watch it, unfortunately, paint paramotoring in such a poor light. It was really sucky to watch such a great guy, Anthony, get hurt. But that's kind of what I think about it. I think any wing could do that. Every wing can do that. If you have a stress tangle like that in your glider, you have sticks in your glider, and you accelerate the glider, that it can do that. I think that's one of the reasons I'm so adamant about my checks. Once I take off, I check my reserve, tap that bad boy, I look up and around, and I check all of my lines. So that's kind of what I think. I don't have any hesitations to fly the Luna 3. I don't think at all it was the Luna 3's fault. I know there was a lot of conspiracies about the Luna 3 being to blame. I don't think the Luna 3 is to blame. I think at this point, wing manufacturers, especially big ones like BGD, are not going to send a wing that is unsafe to the end user. That is only a good way of killing pilots and completely ruining your brand, which is not a good thing for anybody. Obviously, from a business standpoint, they don't want to ruin their brand, and from a personal standpoint, they don't want to hurt their customers. So I don't think it was the Luna 3's fault. I think it was just an unturn of events. Now, back to what we were saying. Chris well stated and said, thank you. I was thinking about making a video. I wanted to make a video discussing it because I just thought that it needed a bit of an explanation, because it never had an explanation. And I really like Anthony. I have nothing but respect for Anthony. But he full-heartedly, blatantly, clearly leaned into it for YouTube attention. He leaned into the emotional side of it. He leaned into the negative side of it. He leaned into the crash aspect. He leaned into it for views. It was everywhere, posted it everywhere. The content revolved around what? Not necessarily the educational side of it. No, it revolved around the crashing side and the screaming and the phone call and like all of those things, which is fine, but it wasn't uploaded and it wasn't published with the intent of educating. It was uploaded to be his video that went viral. Okay, and that to me I have a bit of a problem with. That's part of the reason I said I don't like how it painted paramotoring. And I wanted to make a piece of content that, who knows, maybe nobody would have seen it. Maybe it would have, cleared the air for some people, describing that, like, hey, this is, a pilot that's doing this thing that, like, 90% of pilots don't ever do. And if you don't ever do that, then you don't ever take that risk. But to an untrained eye, you just watch it and it just, like, you just fall out of the sky and this is horrible. And I never want to do that. And I have a wife and kids. And, like, okay, yeah, that's fine. It's just now selling, because it's selling, paramotoring in a really bad way. So there's my rant on Anthony's crash. I'd been saving that one. Where do you find trikes and wings for best selection? Any books that you would recommend to get better at understanding? Well, Mad Max, the PPG Bible is a great book, but the reality is, unless you have any level of experience, it's really hard to read because none of it makes sense. You need to have a little bit of perspective. You need to have done paramotoring or at least touched a wing, hooked in, talked to somebody, gone through a class for the PPG Bible to truly add value and make sense to you. But that is the best book on the marketplace to describe paramotoring. It's called PPG Bible by Jeff Goyne. Andrew, great to see you. I hope you're doing well. It's been a long time since we've chatted. Fly safe, people. Yes, I think Anthony's crash was a good example that, you don't have to fly to the edge. Not that he was even really on the edge, but, I remember Eric Fairwell, the owner of Aviator. I'm sure most of you guys know who he is. He said he took speed bar off because he understood that it took him to an edge that he didn't feel like he needed to be at. And I know it's probably not exactly how he said it, but he took speed bar off. He never flew a speed bar again because, not never, but he tried to never fly a speed bar because it just takes you to another edge. It just takes you to the edge of the wing, okay? And we all naturally are going to want to do that edge thing, fly that thing as fast as we can fly that thing, as low as we can fly that thing. Like, ideally, everybody's like, have altitude, right? You want to be low. That's fine. I get it. To me, speed bar is a point in one direction. Press the bar. Fly that way. Release the bar. Turn. Press. Fly that way. Release. Turn. That is primarily the use of speed bar for me. The other use of speed bar is catching up to people that I'm flying with. I point towards them. I press the speed bar. What I never do speed bar for is low playing. Like, never do slalom flying with speed bar. You're taking the wing to the edge of its capabilities. And we've talked a little bit at the beginning of this live stream about some of the characteristics that affect collapse, prevention, and recovery, okay? Well, when you fully accelerate a reflex profile, you increase its resistance to collapses. It becomes less prone to collapsing. It's more resistant. It can blast through more stuff. But you also increase the aspect ratio, which is another contributing factor to collapse recovery, okay? When you fully accelerate a reflex wing, you take the aspect ratio from being evenly distributed, which it's technically not evenly distributed across a wing on a reflex profile, but you take it from being distributed across the whole profile to being distributed across just the very front of the wing, okay? So now your aspect ratio is just this little tiny front thing. Okay, so if you fully accelerate a reflex wing and you take a collapse, you are recovering from the aspect ratio of this little tiny front line, just the A's, that aspect ratio. You're going to need altitude, you're going to need time, and you may not recover it. So you need a reserve. So when you fully accelerate that wing, you got to realize that you are taking that risk. Like, yes, it's so much more resistant to collapses, but also if it does go, just simply realizing that your aspect ratio is now no longer this, it's this, makes a difference. So there's my little thing. So yeah, it's just a risk. You push speed bar, you change the amount of risk that you're taking. When you go to fly a paramotor, there is a baseline level of risk. When you push speed bar, your baseline just goes up here. All right, Rock Bucket burn 11. I haven't been flying for too long. Lately, I've been using my tip steer toggles in my fingers with my brakes in my hand. And it makes the wing handle so much better. Any reasons to keep them separate? Here's why people often recommend you wait a little while to use your tip steer. On launch and on landing, if you have oscillations or are over dewy on controls, tip steer is going to enhance those corrections. So if you're prone to like taking off and swaying this way, or you're prone to coming in landing like this, tip steer is just going to make those more dramatic. If you have clean launches and you have clean landings, there's no reason to not tie in tip steer. It's just going to make your wing, like you've talked about, handle a little bit better. It feels right. You know, you go from like the squishy, it doesn't feel like it's giving you what it should be, to like it's giving you what it should be. And it's good. Now, I'd also recommend these. Shameless plug. You know, separate tip steer attachment point. You can twist and activate just tip steer. You can pull and get both. You can push and get brake. These are our toggles, of course. But that is usually the big reason why people wait on tip steer. If you have a pilot who takes off, who like tends to pull heavy one brake and they sway and it gets a little sketchy and they come close to the ground, well, guess what? You put tip steer on their brake toggle and now you're just going to enhance that. You have a pilot that's taken off nice and clean and under control, coming in nice and clean and under control. There's no reasons to wait on tip steer. Moving on, Andrew. Mitch G's low speed bar flying is super entertaining to watch, but definitely not my or most people's thing. The reality is, majority of people never fly like that. There is like a sliver of people that fly like that, dude. I bet we could count it. It's probably 15 people in the United States, maybe 20, maybe 30 that fly like that, like to that level. But like, dude, here's the thing with that. Here's the thing with Mitch G's low speed bar flying, right? If that wing does give out by just pulling his own brakes, there's no time and no altitude to fix it. So he's just too low. If it gives out, you're going in. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't like those odds. And it's not hard to accidentally pull your brakes when you're on speed bar. So I've assigned a mental trigger, right? Maybe you guys, I'm sure most of you understand psychology to a degree, but a mental trigger, just like when, you know, you ring a bell to a dog and they know they get a treat. I grab the D's of my riser. What does the D's of my riser mean to me? It means I'm on speed bar. Every single time I grab the D's of my riser, I know I'm on speed bar. It's assigning something to this action. It's the same in paragliding. I grab the D risers when I push my speed bar because that's how you steer the wing on speed bar. Because guess what? If you pull brakes on a paragliding wing on speed bar, you also collapse it. It's not just a reflex thing. So I assign something to it. Well, it's like natural inclination is to want to pull. You're flying around like Andrew, or like Mitch, excuse me, low to the ground on speed bar, dude. Your risk level's like way up there. And as paramotor pilots, and just as people, we have to think about our risk, and we have to try to minimize that risk while not completely eliminating pleasure. That's the other thing. We still want to have fun. You don't want to go through life not having a good time, not doing the things you want to do. But about picking your battles and understanding what risk you're taking and how to minimize the risk you're taking as much as possible. There's my spiel on that. Cost for remote PPG certs. What do you mean by that? Iconic 52. Do you mean for me to give you a certification? That's a good question. I won't charge you anything. You just have to prove that you know how to fly, if that's what you're asking. The PPG Bible makes a lot more sense since going through class. Yes, Brian, the PPG Bible is actually a wealth of information as long as you actually understand paramotoring. If you don't understand paramotoring, the PPG Bible is nothing but a bunch of gibberish that you won't really be able to read. It's just too much. You just don't have any perspective and understanding. Anthony has a video of flying speed bar low as well. Yes, Anthony does have a video of flying low on speed bar. If you actually go break down Anthony's flying over the last little while, it's a little reckless, it's unsafe, it's uncalculated. And I have nothing but respect again for Anthony, but it is a little unsafe, uncalculated, and he tends to push a little too much. Now, thanks for the input, Trevor. I'll definitely check out your toggles. Sounds good. Rocket Burn. Sorry to give a shameless plug, but, you know, we do have the 2 togs, version 1, version 2. How is Chuck doing? Chucky is doing great. I chatted with him, I think, last week. We talk pretty regularly, just to chatter about just stuff. He's a good dude. I like him. I think he's just super, super busy this year with selling private jets. That's kind of what he does full time. But I did go out to Florida for a whole month of February, this last February, and trained a couple of his buddies and just flew around Florida with him, and that was a lot of fun. Thoughts on springtime weather? Springtime weather this year has been definitely dynamic in the evenings, but has tracked very good in the mornings. Consistently good mornings and rough evenings. When are you collabing again with Chucky? He's coming out to Utah, I think, in August. Give Pets the Dune for me. I will definitely give Pets the Dune for you. I'll probably see Dune tomorrow. I've got 6 more text messages since the last time we checked. All right, guys, final questions. Fire them over. 38 of you are watching. If I do this again, if I do a live stream again in the future, should I do it later in the evening than I did it tonight? Today I started at 5 o'clock p.m. Mountain Standard Time. It's currently 7 o'clock p.m. Mountain Standard Time. If I was to do it again, should I start it at 7, 6, or 5? Let me know. Comment. Tell me. I think more people are available later in the evenings. Let's see. How many siblings are you? How many siblings am I? I'm only one sibling, technically. I have one other sibling, if that's what you're asking. Please do lives more often. I will do so. I will do so. 7 o'clock is a better time. I think 5 o'clock was a little early, so I'm glad to hear 7 o'clock as well. Little later would be better. Understood. I can do a little bit later. I will plan for 7 o'clock p.m. in the future. You guys are answering the question. The question. Very good, guys. Very good. You prefer 6. Understood. All right, last questions. Otherwise, I am going to hit that end button. Glad to see you again. Sending prayers. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Philip Diggs, good to see you. Later is better. Understood. You're Australian, so it doesn't matter. All right, Greg. Craig, thank you. Thank you. Dash M, 7 o'clock. Philip, I'd love to see you back out here. Same with Dave. I'd love to see both of you guys get back out here in Utah. I can't believe it's been 2 years, I think, since you guys came out here. I want to say you guys came out in June of 22. It was right before I left my prior employment, which, speaking of that, I put that old Paramotor on for the first time in a long time. Can't believe this is what I used to fly. Ever done any flying around the Boga Bay CA? No, I have not done any flying around there. What's your tip for someone who is starting to paramotor? Don't suck. That's my tip. Fly better. That's the best I got. I mean, that's such a broad question. I don't know. Would it be wrong of me to say to come to one of our training classes? That would be my best tip. Flat top is nostalgic, though. I mean, nostalgic is one way to put it. Yeah, Andrew, I see it now and I go, wow, that's a relic of the past. But I put an old flat top on my back recently, and I stood up and I looked at my cousin. I go, there's no way this is what it feels like. There's no way. This is wrong. And I was genuinely shocked at how bad it felt on the ground. And I was totally shocked that that's what I flew for so long. I thought about making a YouTube video review about it. One day. I did fly it as a kid. I didn't know any better. Now that I've spent 2 years flying other stuff, I can't fathom going back to it. I really can't. Andrew, you got to come out and fly some stuff, dude. What is your life like these days, Andrew? I'll ask you that in person. I'll shoot you a text. But I'd love to have you out here, Andrew, and have you fly some stuff. How many countries have I traveled to? I don't know. I'm not a huge traveler, to be honest with you. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to be a wrap for the evening.
Thank you to all 35 of you that are still listening to this live video. A good 2 hours of rambling. That is something that I tend to do. Have a flat top on a trike. What would you replace it with? A PAP with a trike. A PAP, PAP Tinox version 2 with a second hoop, reinforcement bar, and their mini trike is what I would replace that with, Dylan. Otherwise, Dylan, you could go for a much larger trike. Depends on if you want a light trike or a large trike. Fly Products makes a lot of trikes. I think they make super great trike options. I would look into those, especially if you're looking for a large trike. I don't think anything really beats the Fly Products for large trikes. You know, large trikes to me means that you're running the 300cc engines. It's got a capability of having a second seat. It's got the full roll cage around you. That's what I would recommend for a big trike. For a little trike, I like the PAP. Yeah, it's been more than 2 years. We would love to come back out. I have to drop to a large wing from XXL. It has cleared up the struggle of getting the wing up. Oh, very good. Yeah, the 3XL for you. 3XL just does not want to fly, man. Just change wings. Just get something else. Just trust me on that one. Just call me by Spider 3, 30 meter. It'll be a whole different world. You'll love it. I can't even begin to tell you how much more fun you will have, how much easier it will be. It's just, it's so much better. Anyways, that's all I got. Philip, shoot me a text. Andrew Fetroff, shoot me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you guys for chatting. Andrew Lutz, thank you. And I will see you guys later. How do I turn this off? I don't remember. It's been so long. Oh, there's the button.